We're going to continue your primary coverage 2024 with the insiders, our special group of gentlemen who have come together to talk on both sides of the aisle about what tonight's vote should look like. JR?
All right, Darcy, thank you so much. Dave Wilson, our Republican strategist, Democratic strategist. All right, no surprises, I don't think, today, right, Antjuan?
I don't expect any surprises. The good news is that South Carolina, for the first time in my lifetime, and I think in the history of this country, has led this primary process, being first in the nation. Whether you're Democrat, Republican, or do not participate at all is something to be proud of as a South Carolinian. The good news is we saw an increase in the early vote among African Americans. I think 76% of the people who voted early were African American. That's a 13% increase. Almost 7,000 new people who've never voted before voted in this presidential primary. So that tells me that people are engaged, people are in tune, regardless of what the news indicators may say otherwise. Now, we do know that this is not the 2020 election where we had 23 people. Mm-hmm. It is 3 people running, so that means it's not the 77,000 people that voted early. It was somewhere around 52,000 people, but that's expected in a non-really contested primary.
Right, 52,000 early votes here in South Carolina on the Democratic side. Overall, though, voter turnout, Antjuan, what are you hearing from the Democratic Party about voter turnout in South Carolina? I talked with a couple of people today who told me that voter turnout was pretty slow right now.
Well, slow in the sense of we have a contested, not highly contested race. So I think you have to measure your expectations to that. On the flip side, you have a very hotly contested race on the Republican side, so those numbers will look different. At the end of the day, the most important thing for most Democrats, Joe Biden prevails. Secondarily, other voices are heard in this process. So I do expect some marginalized votes for the other two candidates. But also, more importantly, we will hear from rural, urban, suburban voters, African-American voters, young, not so young, and everything in between here in South Carolina, the rich geographical and demographical diversity of our state.
Dave, what are you hearing out there tonight?
Voter turnout, of course, is going to be lower on a primary where you don't have a contested race like this. The president has a very strong position going into this race. You've got two also-rans that if they get 5% combined will be a big surprise, honestly. And I think with that being the case, you probably will see lower voter turnout. But the best part about this is the first presidential preference primary that we've had with our early voting system in place. That's Keep in mind, you could vote as early as 2 weeks in advance in this race for a presidential preference primary. Now, we did that in the gubernatorial race. We've done that in other races since, but this is the first time that we've seen that. And to see more than 51,000 people turn out for early voting in some way, shape, or form is a great thing because at home you understand that this is your voice being heard on these issues. And I think that type of voter participation, that kind of voter turnout is extremely important in a democratic process that the president is talking about trying to save democracy. And that's what this is.
And one thing we hope to learn from this process is that lawmakers at the Capitol before the June South Carolina primaries will come together in a bipartisan way. So when the Election Commission has to combine or move precincts, there's some sort of notification that goes out to the residents to know that their precinct may have changed between the last election. We had a situation today where I think there were 150 precincts across the state that were moved. State law does not require those people to be notified, so there are people who showed up to vote at the normal precinct and they could not participate. That happened all over the state. It has to be fixed at the state level.
They can participate. The thing that they don't do is they can't participate at their normal precinct. Precinct that I'm at over in Lexington County. There's Bar Road 1, there's Bar Road 2. And there are times where you'll show up at the polling place and they'll go like, you need to go to the other polling place. We combined those today. That is a real inconvenience. The typical thing about that, though, because precincts are typically joined adjacent to other ones, is you simply got to go to the other precinct next door, most likely. But you're right, Antjuan. They should be told ahead of time that this is going to be taking place.
But in rural South Carolina, we have transportation barriers and other things. It's not as simple as it may be in urban, suburban, Lexington County. So I think it's something should be bipartisan. You and I agree.
Right.
So surely lawmakers at the Capitol can agree.
We're not on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday yet.
So surely they can agree to fix this little niche in our system.
If you guys could hang tight for just a moment, let's dip in and take a live look, I believe, at the state fairgrounds where there is a celebration underway. This is the South Carolina Democratic Party chair.
Yep.
Let's listen in.
Already before the polls close tonight, already before the polls opened this morning, tens of thousands of South Carolinians have voted, and they have participated in our early voting process. From the data, we saw a 13% increase in Black voter participation. We saw 6,000 new voters who participated in our Democratic primary, South Carolina Democratic primary, for the first time. These results are a testament to our historic GOTV effort, and I am super proud of the staff and all the volunteers and all the county party leaders that participated in this operation. And now tonight, just 3 days into Black History Month, Black voters have made our voices heard, and we're going to launch our President Biden back to the White House. This night is historic, and I've said it before. The South has something to say, and we said it. And with that, I want to introduce our DNC Chairman, Jamie Harrison.
What's up, South Carolina Democrats? Well, first and foremost, let's give it up to our Madam Chair, the glass ceiling breaker, Crystal Spain. Folks, I am so proud of Crystal and the amazing First in the Nation tour that she put on here in this state. It was unprecedented because this primary was unprecedented. So I want to thank Crystal for her leadership. Thank you, Crystal, for all that you have done to make this a tremendous success. Folks, today, South Carolina took the lead. Today, my friends, South Carolina made history. Again, I want to thank Crystal, I want to thank Jay, I want to thank all of the team, and I'll come back a little later on to show them a little of our appreciation. But today was first and foremost, it was a victory for South Carolina voters, and particularly Black voters and rural voters who are too often ignored. These are Democrats made the win that happened tonight, and we did it through months of hard work and dedication. We had staff and volunteers working tirelessly. All eyes were on South Carolina, and you all got us ready, and you delivered. Today was the beginning of a new day in American politics. Today, I am hopeful and I am proud of the Democratic Party delivering on its promise to Black voters right here in South Carolina. We proved that the days of folks parachuting in on Election Day asking for our votes, those days are over. We proved that Democrats don't just talk the talk, but that we actually live our values, we invest in our voters, and we ensure that all Americans can participate in our democracy. This is just the beginning, my friends. This party and this president is committed to putting in the money, the time, and the resources to earn the votes of every single person between now and Election Day. And together, my friends, we are going to win. You know, hope can only start here in South
That
Carolina.
is Jamie Harrison, the National Democratic Party chairman, saying this is a big win for South Carolina Democrats, especially Black voters in rural areas of South Carolina. And the party chair taking to the podium just before him, basically saying the same thing, echoing the same thing, that this is a big day and a big deal for South Carolina.
A very big deal. The first African-American woman to ever chair this state's party, another big deal. And it's a big deal because for 38 years at least, and I think beyond, Black voters were, although we were first in the South, we were not first in the process. And all we heard for years and years is that the issues that mattered to Iowa and New Hampshire were top priorities for Democrats. And then we get to South Carolina, and since 1992, the tectonic plates shift. So I'm glad that this president had the steel spine and the political will to prioritize a diverse group of people in South Carolina. And I don't just mean racial diversity, I mean geographical diversity as well because of our rich urban, suburban, rural makeup.
That's one of the reasons that South Carolina is a early primary state. One, our size is just right. We've got 5, 6, 7 media markets. It's not like Texas where you got 22. It's easier to do that. It's a smaller area. And when you have things like that, you have a diverse culture like we have. I mean, you go and you think about, JR, the makeup of South Carolina, where you've got the capital city in Columbia, you've got Greenville, you've got Charleston, you've got Myrtle Beach, you've got Florence, Anderson. But at the same time, you've got Swansea and you've got Pillion and you've got, Lamar. These are the towns and the makeup of this state is diverse enough, unlike what you see in places like Iowa and New Hampshire. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Biden administration and the president wanted that push towards South Carolina being a first in the nation status. It is a huge step forward. It is a big statement about the importance, especially of the African American vote as we have seen it take place. It was his winning argument. If you look at this 4 years ago, he was 4th place in Iowa, he was 5th place in New Hampshire, and because of Representative Jim Clyburn and his support and the work that he had done here in South Carolina, Joe Biden ends up becoming the nominee for the Democratic Party and eventually president of the United States.
Well, I know you're anxious to talk about 3 weeks from now. That's where the Republican presidential primary takes place.
Right.
We're expecting any campaign appearances by the 2 leading candidates.
Oh, absolutely. We've got 3 weeks of nothing but a fantastic political brawl.
Right.
If you think you've seen fireworks yet in the 4th of July, you haven't started seeing it in South Carolina politics because Nikki Haley and Donald Trump are going to go head to head, and they are really competing for a diverse group, again, diversity on this front, of Republican voters because they're bringing in a different group of folks. But you're expecting somewhere upwards of 1 million people to be showing up for the Republican primary, which is up from where we were at the last one at 750,000.
Right.
And I've read that the former president will be here the day before the primary with Ben Carson and others for the African American Federation, some sort of event. So I expect that, and we've seen Americans for Prosperity spend somewhere north of $3 million in support of Haley.
We have to go back out to the state fairgrounds. 6th District Congressman Jim Clyburn is speaking now.
Those values you learn on that dirt road in Orangeburg County to Washington and to the nation, and I really appreciate you. Now, I just got off the phone with the president. In fact, I told him I was going to come in, check a precinct, and I'll be calling him back in 5 minutes. Well, that means I won't be talking to you long. I just want to thank all of you for the tremendous work you put into this effort. You have demonstrated once again that boots on the ground mean more than procrastinators and prognosticators. And so thank you so much for the tremendous effort. Now, as Jamie has said, this is about much, much more than the South Carolina Democratic Party. This is about the freedoms that we hold dear. This is about keeping this country on its journey toward a more perfect union. This is a great country. In no need of being made great. It's great already. You and I must keep working together to make this country's greatness accessible and affordable for all of its citizens. That's what Joe Biden has been doing for 3 years, making this country's greatness accessible for everybody and affordable by everybody. So when we did broadband to make sure that every home, every business in South Carolina throughout this country is connected to the internet, we didn't just make it available. The connectivity program is making it affordable. That's what we got to do. No matter how good our healthcare system is, it's got to be affordable by everybody. We've got a great educational system, but is it affordable by everybody? We've got tremendous, what I might call, energy sources, but is it affordable? That's what our work is all about, making this country's greatness accessible and affordable, and bringing this country back together again. That is what this is about. It doesn't mean that we will always agree on everything. We'll never do that. I tell everybody, I stayed married to the same woman for 58 years. So I know what it's like to have disagreements. So disagreeing doesn't mean we can't get along. It means that we will find a way to come together and succeed in our efforts. If it's in the family, in the community, in the state, in this nation, whatever it is, let's come together and make sure that we move forward as one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's what this is all about. Jeremy, I'm going to close with this. I feel so strongly about this. What you have done here today, on the heels of what was done up in New Hampshire last week. Joe Biden won a write-in, getting 67% of the vote, when his name was not even on the ballot. I saw the number of votes he got. Those votes were unrivaled by our last Democratic president. And so I believe, Jamie, that it's time for us to ask our Rules Committee not to hold the state law in New Hampshire against our Democrats. They worked hard, and they won a victory. And I would like to see, as a sign of us all coming together, marching to victory in November, let's figure out, let the Rules Committee figure out a way to let those Democratic delegates up in New Hampshire have their vote at the convention. Let's just do that as a sign of bringing people together. Don't hold them responsible for their state law. Let's bring this party together. Let's bring the American people together. I want my children and my grandchildren, and now I have a great-grandchild. I want her growing up in a country that is there for her children. I want us to be one country, one nation, under God, with liberty, and with justice for all. Thank you, and Godspeed.
All right, there you have 6th District Congressman Jim Clyburn taking a shot at former President Trump in some of those remarks, Dave, saying America doesn't have to be made great again because it's already great.
It is great. It's a great country. We have a great democracy. We need to continue for it to be a great country. And I think that we are seeing differences in policy about making it and continuing it as a great country. And that is always going to be a great political argument that's going to go back and forth. What makes a country great? Well, not the least of which is voter participation, which we saw has been up thus far, at least in early voting. We'll see what the full numbers turn out with.
We heard from the president earlier when he was in Delaware today, basically saying Trump was the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party. It certainly sounds like hearing from Congressman Clyburn that he believes it as well. And I think you believe that he is going to win South Carolina and be the nominee.
There you go, JR. Should we get a selfie on that one real quick?
I do believe that the former president will be the nominee, and I believe Trumpism will be on the ballot. And at the end of the day, if that's what the voters decide, then let the voters decide out of the two who they want to be the leader of the free world.
But Nikki Haley supporters, Dave, have something to say about that, right?
It is not over yet. There are 21 more days until Republicans go to the ballot. And here's the thing about this. If you have not voted yet and you are registered to vote in South Carolina, we do not register by party. We register to vote. And so if you didn't vote in this election, there's 3.5 million voters in South Carolina. If 500,000 people show up, there's 3 million people who have an ability to vote and speak into this issue. In South Carolina, that's been a big issue.
We have to listen. President Biden's on the phone. Let's take a listen.
What kind of turnout you have?
Well, Mr. President, we're waiting to get the final numbers. But from what I'm told by some folks, I think you got it.
All right. Well, I'm here in a party hosted by an incredible lady who is put together 8 of her friends. I'm out in California, and we're going to take whatever you did for us in South Carolina and run with it.
That's right.
Well, thanks, everybody. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And you're not rid of me. I'm coming back.
Well, we appreciate that, Mr. President. Thank you for all you do, and I'm sure that me and Mr. Clyburn and I will see you at the next stop. Take care of yourself.
God love you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
That was the President of the United States on the phone there with Jamie Harris. And Jim Clyburn had just said he had been on the phone with him, Antjuan.
That was Jim Clyburn's phone
On that. Did you watch it? Jamie handed that one back.
But look, the president is a loyal, honorary son of South Carolina. It's no surprise and should not be shocked to anybody the relationships and the depth of the whip the president enjoys here in this state, not just with Democratic voters, but with all voters. His long-term history with Fritz Holland and certainly his long-standing relationship with the black community always comes through on election night here in South Carolina.
That's one of the things. Relationships is a real key item when you talk about presidential preference primaries in a state like South Carolina.
All right, the Associated Press is calling the race for President Biden. We're going to wrap things up here online for the moment, but join us on WLTX, Channel 19, as we have a news bulletin coming your way.